Hey y'all, it's Matt and Heather with the Joyful Family. We're so excited you're joining us. On this one, we're going to be talking about dating your spouse, which is a super controversial but super fun topic all in the same time.
And it's funny to me that it is controversial because the concept of going on a date with your spouse really is, to me, like, it's exciting and fun. But for some people, I guess it seems like such an uphill mountain to climb that they're frustrated or they just don't understand.
Well, usually they blame it on finances or childcare or being too busy or
all the above.
All the above. And we get it. We have 6 kids, and there was a time that we didn't get to date a lot, and so we had to make do with what we had available to us. And so it was at-home dates or, just stealing away little pieces of time. And so it wasn't always like this, hey, we're going to get a sitter and go out to dinner. And, like, I think sometimes whenever we think of dating, we think it has to be this elaborate, like, dinner and movie and an activity or whatever. And it doesn't. It can just be stealing away time together to reconnect.
Yeah, and it's interesting on this, and I encourage you to not just take our word for it, although it's pretty smart advice, but research this for yourself. There's a lot of really good studies that talk about the statistics that show why it's important to date your spouse. But I saw this headline that it said after studying over 11,000 couples, it shows that it's not the person you choose, but the relationship that you build. And I think that's important, the building the relationship. Now, it's important to choose the right person.
Right.
You can enter marriage with a lot of struggles if you choose someone that's rocky from the beginning. But like with Heather and I, like, we dated. I knew her extremely well. And I felt like we had a running start into our marriage, but it's not just getting married wasn't the pinnacle part of our relationship. It was the beginning of our journey together. And what we have done with that, the cultivating part, all of that throughout the years is what has gotten us to 22 years later.
Yeah.
And so it's what are you doing with that investment? What are you doing with that relationship, that covenant that you have with your spouse is extremely important.
And your spouse should be your best friend. I have other friends, but Matt, he's my number one. Like, he is my best friend. And I talk about everything to him. And so why wouldn't I want to go on a date and spend more time with him? Because he's my person. But that didn't happen overnight. That took a lot of cultivating our relationship and spending time together and getting to know the things that he likes and showing interest in the things he likes and vice versa. And so it doesn't always just happen. Sometimes busyness and getting tired and kids and all that tends to get in the way. But we've just learned we have to make that a pillar in our schedule. Yeah. And we don't really explain to anybody why or, we don't break those plans, pending a super emergency or something like that. But, like, we keep our date night as a rock in our schedule. Yeah. And that's been that way for several years now.
In one study, and there's a couple of different studies here that I found extremely interesting, but one of them showed that less than half of married couples go on regular dates at least once or twice a month. Less than half. Another study showed that only 18% of couples go on a date night once a month. So that is shocking.
Yeah.
Now, especially because the people that did date regularly, the couples reported that if they participated in regular date nights, they have increased marital happiness. Their marriage is more stable. There's increased sexual satisfaction. So basically what it's talking about is if the couples that invest in what she just said, that relationship, the time together, the conversations, all that, whenever you do that, it has a trickle down effect throughout every part of your marriage.
Yeah.
If I'm connected to her emotionally, it impacts every part of me. It impacts the bedroom. It impacts how we treat each other outside the bedroom. It impacts how we parent together. And so prioritizing this time together, it's not negotiable for us because it helps us be the best version of ourselves, but just also the best couple. And like, we have 6 kids. They kind of need us to be good.
Yeah. Our kids will learn how to be a spouse from us. And so we want to model what we would like for them. And so, we're busy. We have things going, basketball and volleyball and all the things that kids do, right? Piano. We're busy. We work full time. We have a lot going on. So sometimes it's not us getting a sitter and going out. Sometimes it's us just saying, hey, we're going to put the kids to bed early and watch a movie together. Or whatever, something simple. It can even just be like an hour of having just conversation, you know. It doesn't have to be, people get so hung up, and so make it special. You know, sometimes it's just us, just, hey, we're gonna put our phones down and have a conversation, because that's hard to do sometimes with all that we've got going on.
You know, and I would say probably the biggest obstacle that we face with date nights is the busyness.
Right.
And the other part of it is the busyness combined with taking each other for granted, meaning sometimes couples think that cohabitation is the same thing as pursuit, and that's not. I can wake up next to her every day and not feel connected to her because I haven't pursued time with her. And so cohabitation means you're sharing the same space, but that doesn't mean that you're pursuing and investing and connecting. And so you have to, like, the busyness needs, like, you have to, what is it, the phrase, if you're too busy to go on dates, then you're too busy.
Well, and it's also putting your devices down. Because how many times have we gone to dinner with somebody, and yes, you may be having dinner sitting right next to them, but you haven't heard anything that they've said. You haven't engaged in any meaningful conversation whatsoever because you're both so into your phones. We've seen people out like that. Like, they're sitting across from each other and they're so dialed into their phone, they never spoke a word. And so, you know, it's that meaningful time. Put your devices down. Meaningful.
And so we had the opportunity on our anniversary. We went to the mountains, took an 8-hour car trip, and that probably was the most enjoyable, long part. We had so much fun. It was just me and Heather for, what, 3 nights? Mm-hmm. But the car trip, for 8 hours, we had conversations, and we listened to her playlist that was almost 8 hours. But it was just because it was just us. And sometimes you have to just step back and it just be you.
Right.
Like, I wear a lot of hats. Heather wears a lot of hats. But on those date nights, I'm not dad, I'm not pastor, I'm not painter, she's not mom, it's just us. And you have to be able to strip all of the stuff away and just kind of go back to, like, why did I fall in love with her? Well, it's because the time together in her eyes. Intoxicating. But it's like, but you lose sight of all of that when busyness overtakes things. And so she's kind of hinted at some things, but I wanted to leave with some practical insight today. Just a couple of ideas that'll help if you're struggling in this area. And one of them I would say is think outside the box.
Yeah.
For so many years of our marriage, we didn't have a traditional babysitter. At one point, when the twins were born,
4 kids under the age of 4.
4 kids did you hear that? 4 kids under the age of 4.
And so,
a lot of diapers.
We had twins. At that point, even if we had a babysitter, I'm not sure we could pay them enough money. Like, I don't know.
You need hazard pay with 4 kids under 4.
You need hazard pay with 4 kids under 4. And so we didn't go on dates outside of our home. And so we would put them to bed. He would grab takeout on his way home from work. We would have takeout, get a fun dessert or something, watch a movie, and just make it meaningful. And so, you know, it doesn't have to be extravagant. Make it meaningful. Show that you care. Put some effort into it. That's all your spouse wants. They want to know that you actually care and took the time to make it special for them. Yeah,
and it's something we also had to learn is the kids they'll learn to respect date time. Yeah. They may not always like it. I remember there'd be some times whenever Heather would make something for the kids and make a good meal. I would bring something home special just for me and her. And I remember the kids, they'd get attitude or what's going on. I said, listen, this isn't about you right now. I mean, it's okay to put the kids to bed early. Yeah. It's okay for the kids to hear the door shut and know that mommy and daddy are having alone time.
Yeah.
Because what Heather mentioned earlier is you're shaping normal for them one day. And God help me if my kids have a marriage one day that's void of connection. And like I would hate that you know, to normalize a dysfunctional marriage because we didn't model correctly.
Yeah.
And so one of it is Heather had to kind of get over the mom guilt.
So mom guilt is a real thing. It is something that moms deal with because when our kids are crying at the door and they don't want us to leave, you know, that pulls on our heartstrings and then we have a hard time leaving. And so I used to give them kisses and byes or whatever. I would never necessarily sneak off, but Matt would keep them preoccupied and I would go out the door, and we found things that helped to get beyond that. But then for me personally, I just had to realize, you know, this is better for them in the long run. Like, they may miss me in this moment, but the fact that they know they have a stable home to come home to, that they have parents that are still married and that are best friends, that we're not screaming and fighting in our home all the time, like, those things are giving them security in their childhood. And so I don't feel guilty for that, because we're building a home full of peace because we're at peace. And when we're at peace, the rest of the house can be at peace. And so the mom guilt, it's something I had to deal with, and you can get over it. You just push through.
No, and it's something that as a dad, I had to also learn how to be respectful. Shockingly, as many times as I would tell her lovingly, they're going to be, okay, suck it up. Let's have a good evening. She doesn't always. That just, for some reason, never fix the problem. And so there has to be some compassion for both. But fight through that. Fight through the obstacle. Another important pointer is be realistic. There would be some times that I would love to have taken her to a really nice restaurant. I would love to do something very elaborate, and that wasn't realistic in the phase of life that we were in. And so what we had to learn how to do is make whatever works, whatever we could do, the best of it. Right. And there's sometimes if finances are an issue, go on a picnic. Do a stay-home date. If a babysitter is an issue,
cook their favorite meal. Like, it doesn't even have to be takeout. We could cook, I have certain meals that I make that I know he loves. And so, cook a favorite meal. Just do something, make a special dessert. Do something meaningful. It's about the thought. And people get so caught up. So just don't make it complicated. Make it easy, but make it a block in your schedule.
And learn your spouse. Meaning, if I want to take her on a date that's meaningful for her, it won't involve baseball. Now, she loves me and she tolerates. This is one of the few outfits that I have that isn't Texas Rangers. Rangers won the World Series.
His closet is red, blue, and white.
I haven't gotten over the Rangers won in the World Series. She finally I walked out of the room one day and she's like, okay, when does this stop? When do we not wear Rangers? And so I actually have a video now of me not wearing Rangers. It's OU.
It's another sports team, but we're fine.
But
it's good.
We have a daughter at OU, so I'm supporting my daughter. But if I want to connect with her, it's not going to be over baseball. So I know her favorite restaurant. And sometimes she doesn't want to go to a movie. She'd rather do a certain thing. And so I ask, hey, what would be a good date night? Does this sound good? And so if I want to connect with her, I do it in a way that she will respond and it be meaningful to her. She doesn't love steaks. Isn't her ideal thing. So I wouldn't take her to a steak restaurant. And so the key is to invest the time wisely. You can do a lot of effort and a lot of money and completely miss the mark because you're basing the date on what you would want, not what they would want. And so the other part of this is make it fair.
Yeah, don't always be one-sided. He doesn't always cater to me. I've gone to baseball games, I've gone to different stadiums. I've done all those things. Why? Because he loves it. And so I go and be a part of it because it's something that he likes. And so get involved in what they also like and just be present in it.
And the biggest thing is, remember, the goal here is pursuit. It's the connection. It's the time together. And so if that is the goal, it doesn't have to require an X amount of money. It doesn't have to require the certain thing or whatever. It's about what is going to work in your marriage, what's going to work for your spouse, what's going to work within your budget, within your constraints. The biggest thing is just make it work. Figure it out. It's worth it. Because there's nothing in the world like a thriving marriage. Yeah. On the other side, there's nothing in the world like a dysfunctional marriage.
Truth.
And so do the work that you need to have that marriage.
Yeah. So if you're new around here, our website is www.ajoyfulfamily.com. Go and visit us. Matt has written a book. That's on there. There's ways to give to help support. We have a lot of people that message us for counseling and they can't afford it. And so whenever you're giving to A Joyful Family, you're helping give to scholarships to families in need of some major intervention, and help us reach marriages across the country. And so anyways, if you want to go and look at joyfulfamily.com, and we'll see you soon.